inconvenience. Good morning. I'm pretty nervous because I have to speak in English. So that, yeah, but I'm sorry I don't speak any other language than Japanese and English. So please stand for next 40-something minutes. In 1993, I started developing Ruby. So that it was nearly 26 years, just for fun. So that I wanted to create my own programming language. I was a language fan for a long, long time. When I was in high school, soon after I started programming, I was interested in programming languages. And I studied many programming languages. And but back then, we didn't have internet. So that I read the books of computer science books, and I studied many programming languages, like a Lisp, Smalltalk, and Basic, Fortran, COBOL, or the Pascal, and C. And those languages are pretty interesting, just because those languages are designed by people, the human being, and then they are designed by intention, so that no one knows who invented English. So that human language are formed gradually, and there's no particular inventor of human languages. But the programming language has the particular inventor, and then they have some kind of the policy or philosophy and intention for their design of the language. So that as a high school student, I wanted to be one of them. I want to create my own programming languages. I was interested in some programming languages, the computer science, programming. At the same time, I'm interested in some part of the psychology. So that I'm interested in how human mind reflects and how human mind, can be manipulated by, entities like programming languages. So I created the programming language. Yeah, after my high school dreams, 10 years after my high school dream, so that I finally created my own programming language named Ruby. Back then, total number of users, 1, of course. And then 1995, I put it on the internet. Then some people downloaded my teeny programming language. And then I formed mailing list. It is before web. So then we had 200 mailing list members after 3 weeks or some weeks later. So the total number of users of Ruby is 200 in 1995. The year 2000, the first English Ruby book was published, named Pickaxe, the programming Ruby. And then the book, the 20,000 copies of books was sold. So that I estimated the total number of Ruby users in year 2000 is probably 10,000. Then a year later, we formed the first RubyConf ever in Tampa, Florida. And then the number of attendees was 34. The first Ruby conference. Last year, we had a Ruby Kaigi in Sendai, Japan, and we had almost 1,000 attendees there. And I don't count the number of this conference, maybe 400 something or 300? Yeah. And then I estimated the total number of Ruby users all over the world is more than a million. So the 1 to million in 25 years. So the Ruby became popular, very, very popular. And Ruby is used everywhere. You know, some very famous or big websites use Ruby, at least partially, from small to big. And then numerous applications are written in Ruby. In web, many small startup companies use Ruby, and even bigger companies use Ruby, like Twitter, Netflix, Airbnb, and many other companies. And the DevOps people use Ruby through the Chef and Puppet. And we even see that Ruby is used in the embedded programming, like through the mRuby, which is the alternative implementation of Ruby for embedding field. Like mRuby is used for robots, payment devices, microsatellites, and other things. And for web servers, the Nginx mRuby or H2O, which is the HTTP 2-server web server, mRuby is built in. And then some games, for example, the Nier Automata use mRuby inside. These things cannot be happen without community. So then, yeah, I started Ruby, but the most of the evolution of the language are done by the community. The open source software is heavily rely on community. So the community is quite a difficult term. You know, the meaning is pretty much vague. So the original meaning of the community is group of people, like a city of Goa or Indian citizens. They are community. They are real community. But open source community is not mere group of people. Nature of open source community is less known. Yeah, maybe you know, but less known to the public. I use Ruby, you use Ruby, the individuals Rubies, but unlike real communities, and open source community is ours. We have no registration, so that you have no initiation to get into the Ruby community, right? You didn't pay me to join the Ruby community, so that it's, you know, the membership is pretty much vague. We have no vote. We have no mayor. The open source community is pretty much virtual through the internet. So that we can't touch it. So that even though the open source community, Ruby community, is formed by us, people, but any individuals cannot be represent or control the community. We don't have membership. We have no exclusive membership. You know, you are the member of the community, Ruby community. At the same time, you might be the member of the JavaScript community or Go community. So the open source software community is kind of the vague structure of developers and others. It's kind of like a typhoon, like this. So that typhoon consists by rain, wind, low pressure, or atmosphere molecules, but no single raindrop nor a wind cannot be typhoon. The vague structure of those things, rain, wind, low pressure, or something, and then that forms typhoon. We know there's typhoon. We see typhoon is coming, but we don't touch it. We just feel. with huge power. So that Ruby cannot be Ruby without the community. So that we had so many bug reports. Actually, when I formed the mailing list in 1995, the first mail was, okay, congratulations for the forming mailing list. By the way, I see bug. The second mail is from myself, and okay, I fixed it, thank you. The third one is, okay, thank you for fixing it. I find another bug. Okay, I got so many bug reports in the history of Ruby language, and then we fixed them. And feature requests and the proposal. We received so many feature requests and the proposals, and the Ruby language is formed and guided from those feature requests and proposals. Like UTF-8, the Ruby originally does not understand Unicode. But one day, a guy sent me a mail with a patch that allow Ruby to understand UTF-8. I thought it was impossible, but he proved it is quite possible. And the numerator, generational garbage collector, and the keyword arguments all proposed and some implemented by the community. And actually, I'm not really good at writing documents and tutorials, but some people from the community that wrote and provided those documents and tutorials. And then the people all over the world formed meetups, and they wrote books, and they organized the conferences like this. And then many people wrote frameworks and gens. So that those kind of efforts gradually formed up the broader Ruby community, and this community things drives the internet, and that drives many things. So that even we can't touch the community, so that we can guide the community. So what drives the open source community? It varies from person to person. For some people, the intellectual curiosity can be the driving force. Or some people desires for recognition. Some people loves communication between the members of the community. Some people use Ruby for money or job. Yeah, that's okay. Some people feel responsibility for the language, like myself. No uniform mindset. So that even though you are the member of the Ruby community, but your mindset or your motivation may vary from person to person. So that, like I said, community is like a typhoon. Ruby started from one-person project, the 200 million members, and the 20,000 copies of pickaxe books, and a conference all over the world, like this year. Yeah, I received so many invitations from all over the world, so that if I accept all of them, maybe I have no time to stay in the home. So that I have to pick some of them, and I'm glad that I could come here. So the community has grown. Ruby increased its power. Ruby has the best open source software community, and because of being friendly, because of being nice to each other, so that I am proud of this community. This is very nice community. So the community is everything. Ruby is the language, is just the start. Ruby is the community, is the value. So that we can get many benefit from the community. We can get the job, uh, we get higher salary, or maybe the better career, or you can contribute to the world, so that we get the value from the community. How can we maximize the value? So providing benefit. So that the Ruby, one of the strong point of the Ruby language is the productivity, or the having a comfortable community, or scalability, intellectual challenge, so that to form the better community, bigger community, nicer community, we need to feed the community. Otherwise, community members will go away. So that we cannot expect the strong loyalty to the community. We have no. If you bored to the Ruby language, or maybe you find the better language, you can easily switch to the new technology. So that we can't. The creators, or maybe the co-contributors, cannot stop you from leaving Ruby. So we have to feed the community, or we will eventually fade away. Yeah, open source community is kind of like a shark. We have to keep swimming, or open source software cannot stop. Otherwise, the software will die. So those kind of things, I'm kind of sick of the hostile claims like Ruby is dead, because Ruby gems have less GitHub stars on GitHub, or because Ruby doesn't have static typing, because Ruby is no longer a shiny language. Does this mean that Ruby is fading, despite of all our effort? I disagree. There's something named hype cycle like this. When technology started, so that the new technology get the attention, so that we see the peak of inflated expectation. So that maybe 10 years ago, we had this kind of peak of inflated expectation. But as Ruby grows, as Rails grows, so that everyone knows Rails, everyone mimics Ruby and Rails, and then they started kind of the disappointment of seeing Ruby is slow, or maybe Ruby doesn't scale, so that the new technology sees the trough of disillusionment. Then we see the slope of enlightenment to realize the real value of the technology. Then we see the plateau of the productivity. This is hype cycle. Every technology goes like this, and some dies before seeing this kind of the slope of enlightenment. Okay, look at the right side. If we're in the trough of disillusionment, or in the plateau of productivity, if we're at the bottom of the trough, we can only go up. The best time to invest. Or if we're in the plateau of productivity, the productivity is our best benefit. So that means we are in our golden age. Yeah. People love bizarre things. People love new and shiny things. New language comes every year. New frameworks comes every year. It's fun to see new platform, the new framework, new technology, isn't it? But we are grown-ups. We make money. The Twitter have moved from Ruby, so that some claims Ruby is dead due to the leaving of Twitter. The Ruby declined popularity ranking. Okay, Ruby is not recommended, some say. So what? Ruby helped to form Twitter. In 2007, I guess, when the Twitter was started, that no one understand what Twitter is, and then it was some kind of the micro blog, and the length of the entry was limited in 140 characters. It is silly. It is kind of a stupid idea. You can just use your blog system, WordPress or the Blogger or whatever, to write long, even thousands or even tens of thousands characters. But Twitter limits only 140 characters. It seems silly idea, but they proved the Twitter is wonderful. Everyone uses Twitter right now, and I believe very early stage of Twitter that they tried many things, and some things succeeded, some things failed, and their trials and errors, the being written in Ruby, helped them a lot. Then they understand retweeting, DM, the hashtag, the searching, recommendation, and whatever, so that they gradually formed what Twitter was. And then after that, Twitter became popular, so popular, and they got billions of posts and millions of members. So that they gradually moved into the Java technologies. But that's okay. Ruby helped Twitter to form. We helped to define Twitter at a very early stage. This is our value. The flexibility, the productivity helped Twitter a lot. So we do help you too. Ruby helped to trials and errors. That's the value. And remember, Twitter used 1.8, which is the ancient version. So now, break-even point, it has been moved so far by new virtual machine. Now Ruby is much faster. Now Ruby is much more scalable, and Ruby is feature-rich. So what we need more? So that we need more developers because we need power from the community. And we need more business success stories. And we need sponsors. We need conferences. We need the development grants. We need more job boards. We need more communication. Ruby's policy, one of Ruby's policy is never give up. Very early stage of Ruby, some people around me claimed, okay, we have Perl. Perl is enough. Okay, we have no need for new programming language. And I said, no. In the past, some claimed object-oriented programming was not required for scripting because Ruby was scripting language. So we don't need object-oriented scripting language. And then I said, no. Some claimed in the past the smaller language is better. So that he liked Lisp. And then the smaller, simpler programming language is better, the easier to learn, easier to study, easier to use, he claimed. And then I said no. So that Ruby is very convenient, and even though the syntax is far more complex than Lisp, but at the same time, the Ruby is far more understandable, far more readable than Lisp or any other language, because uh, you know, our human mind is not that simple. So that, remember that. So that suppose you are learning the foreign language, say Japanese. Is that for you, Japanese is a total strange programming, strange language. We have the Chinese characters, we have hiraganas and kataganas, and we have a bunch of characters. It is quite difficult to read for foreigners. But once you understand, it is very convenient. I testify. The Japanese language is pretty convenient for a language. We can distinguish the imported words, like from English or French. And the some words imported from China, and some ideas written from Japan can be easily distinguished and easily combined. This is quite nice language, and so our brain can handle those kind of the complex things in your native language or your language. So that once Ruby became your language, the Ruby will help you to be more productive. Okay, in the past, some claimed that Ruby is slow, so Ruby is supposed to be slow, and I said no. And the Ruby performance has been improved by order of magnitude from the beginning. So the Ruby became pretty fast, and Ruby is fast enough for most of the tasks. By comparing some micro benchmarks, the simple loop for millions of times. Okay, Ruby might be slow from the overhead from the virtual machine, but for real world application, Ruby is fast enough for most of the cases, and the performance itself has been increased a lot in the past. Maybe compared to the Ruby 2.0 5 years ago, the Ruby 2.6, the recent version, is 2 times faster in average, or 2 times is too much. Probably 1.5 times faster. Okay. Some claims we should add type annotation to the language. So the PHP, which originally was a dynamic types programming language, added type annotation, and it became that looks like more and more to Java. And Python added type annotation in Python 3. We should add type annotation, some claimed. And I said no. So adding type annotation to the language changes the taste of the language too much, I believe. And most of the cases, I prove I was right. I never gave up. I never gave up. We had other languages in 90s. In 90s, we had many programming languages invented by individuals like myself. But most of them had gone away. Too bad. They gave up for many reasons. Some became too busy to work on the open source software. Some just didn't get the traction or popularity. So I claim that the best way for survival is the having policy or philosophy, and never giving up, and keep moving. And then so your actions. I recommend your actions to survival. So use Ruby, earn money, hire developers, and participate in the community, be nice, and be happy. and then contribute our effort. The form positive feedback loops, improve productivity, lower learning curve. How can we do that? How can we do this? We can lengthen our stride. We've done great things in the past. We formed so many gems. We have, I don't know, I didn't count, but we have so many Ruby gems provided. It is the community effort. I didn't create any Ruby gems in the past. I didn't create 0 Ruby gems. But you did. And we have more than, I don't know, 10,000 more? 100,000? So many Ruby gems. But we have been improved by productivity using Ruby and frameworks like Rails and so many Ruby gems. And we have lowered the learning curves by providing the tutorials like our Rails guide. And we have great tools and libraries. And we have great Ruby communities and meetups and conferences. But I say we can do one step further out of comfort zone. Attend one more conferences. Make a new friend. Try new things. Admire others. Look into the eyes. Okay, could you stand up? Could you stand up? Thank you. And okay, see next person to you. Look into the eyes. Shake hands. This is the community. Yeah, most of us share similar feelings because we love Ruby. You know, I started Ruby for me, myself. I designed Ruby for myself. So I designed Ruby to make me happy. But surprisingly, you feel happy when you use Ruby. I didn't expect that, to be honest. But we share similar feelings. So, okay, share your ideas. Your idea is very, very valuable. Share your feelings to blog, Twitter, Facebook, Medium, or whatever. Yeah, it might be a drop of water, but it will form the ocean. So you do your part, we do our part. We, the core committers, that we will try our best to survive. We will improve the language, and then we are working on Ruby 3. So everything for productivity. We will improve the performance and concurrency, the code analysis, and we will provide tools to improve our productivity. So you do your part. One step further, it will change the world to the better place. So let me talk about the future. The future is uncertain. The end of the last year, we released Ruby 2.6. We had endless range, and then counter then enabled 2H, expanded JIT compiler. The plug call has been improved, and the transient heap, which improved the memory efficiency. So the guy names the guy Malier, summarized the change in the language in Ruby 2.6. And I say we see Ruby 3 in 2020, hopefully. And we will work on the performance improvement and concurrency and the static types. For performance, we released the MJet, which is the JIT compiler for Ruby, with Ruby 2.6, and then it is still experimental. It doesn't make Rails application faster. It makes Rails application slower yet. But we're working on, so that we will see the Ruby 2.6 with JIT enabled runs almost 3 times faster compared to Ruby 2.0 in some benchmarks, some CPU-intensive benchmarks. But we are not satisfied with the current result. So that we are working to improve the JIT compiling performance improvement. So we are working on the concurrency, the codenamed guild. Probably we will rename the term because of the guild. The name guild conflict with some kind of the application in the gaming industry. We are working the type profiler, which kind of doing not the type inference, but the type guessing, without any type annotations. So that we have JIT compiler, and then we have the experimental type profiler, and then we are working on guilds. Okay, this year 2016, will be the year of the concurrency for me. So that I will work on the concurrency this year, because we see the basic fundamentals of the JIT compiler, and we are working still experimental the type profiler, so that we have some kind of the very experimental implementation of guilds, but it is incomplete, so that we have to work on concurrency this year. And in addition, we are working on the pattern matching in Ruby language, like in some functional programming language. And then we will improve the keyword arguments to behave more sanely. And then we provide the API for the beta tooling. So for example, we had implemented the AST abstract syntax tree to tools, so that you can implement more tools like Rubacop or some kind of Ruby static analysis tools easier. And we kind of see the even farther future, farther than 2020. Last year, Guido van Rossum, Python father, retired. And then, okay, time to think about retirement. I will turn 60 in 2025, so that, we have to think about aftermaths. Recently, demanded a person demanded to form some kind of committee or consortium to lead the Ruby language, to improve the performance of improvement of the language. The Ruby language improvement maybe slower than you might expect. But I tell you, the design of the language, especially the language which is used by millions of people, is quite difficult. I testify. And by leading the language, by designing the language by the group of people, I believe slows down the improvement, the evolution, because of it is more difficult to keep consistency, and it is more difficult to keep the responsibility. So I say no to forming the consortium or committees. So yeah, we are jokingly talk about the design, language design AI. So that puts every decision, put every word from my in the past, mailing list, Twitter, or everything into one, the deep learning, the machine learning things, and then that says no for 50% of the every proposal or something like that. Anyway, we are vaguely thinking about the Ruby 4 project that would release in 2025. I have no idea yet. Right now I'm focusing on Ruby 3, but the Ruby 4 could be a practice for the future. The testbed for new design process after maths. Probably I will ordain a person to lead the community for a certain amount of time, and then so they practice for Ruby 4 without thinking compatibility or anything like that, so that they can learn about the consistency or difficulty of the language design. Future is uncertain, so that I can't say anything fixed for the future. But we're prepared. We be prepared. I will be prepared. We will keep moving forward, and we will lengthen our stride, and we will create value. And we means we, not we, as a community. So that by Ruby, through Ruby, we can change the world. We can create the value. And that is my honor. And I really, really appreciate the community. Thank you. Last but not least, I would like to say the special appreciation to Jane sisters who saved us, saved me. Yesterday, I had some kind of the miscommunication with the organizer, and they failed to pick me up at the airport. Yeah, I was they are panicked, and I'm total stranger at the airport, and the Jane sisters, could you stand up? We took same flight, and they shared the taxi to the venue, and with them I was probably dead in the sea of the Gulf or something like that. So yeah, I very, very appreciate them. Thank you. Yeah, please sit down. Yeah, I appreciate the community. I appreciate you to come here to join the conference, and I will appreciate you to strengthen Ruby community, Ruby the language, and Ruby the community. Thank you.
Mats has kindly agreed to answer a few questions. So if anyone has any questions, we can hear them now.
Any questions? Yeah.
I have a question for you,
Yeah,
Mats.
sure.
What do you feel about static typing in Ruby?
The static typing itself is pretty nice idea. We find more bugs, and we find better quality of the code we produce. As the size of the application grows, the testing is become more and more difficult, and takes a longer time. But with static typing, we find more bugs. At the compile time, we see the less testing time. We require less test. But at the same time, so that the language, like, it is okay for language like a Scala or maybe the Go, Rust, and the language designed to be static type language. But the Ruby was born to be dynamic type programming language, and Ruby is okay without any type annotation. So that we have some kind of a contradiction. The better concise notation, or the find more bugs, or better quality. So that we adding some constraint, like giving up soundness, giving up the completeness, so that we find, say, 70 to 90% of the type errors can be found without any type annotation. The technology named the abstract interpretation can find the 60 to 90% of the type errors without any type annotation. So that we are working on it. So that the type profile I said in the slide is that kind of technology.
Great. We look forward to seeing what that does. I think it will be a very fundamental change to the DNA of Ruby, which is very Lisp-like in the sense that you can ask it to do anything. And generally, you're talking about transformations on data. And bringing in a type system actually changes the way you think about programming in general. So at the same time, I don't want to write any more null tests. So we look forward to this, to this amazing new Ruby 3. So we have a question over there. Mike? You want Mike?
Mike.
So when you said that Ruby 3 will bring the concurrency, so does it mean that GIL will be gone? Like global
does it mean?
Global interpreter log, GIL?
We will not remove the global interpreter lock in the Ruby 3 because of the mostly due to the compatibility issue. But we introduced a new concurrent entity which forms a kind of the global interpreter lock, the group, so that we have multiple groups of the lock, which the different groups can be run without the interleaving.
Well, if there are no more questions, then I guess a big round of... Oh, wait, we have one more. Yeah.
It's a generic question. So I just want to know, as a creator of Ruby developer, how do you see Rails? Because lots of people use Rails.
How do I see?
Rails.
Rails. You know, the one thing for sure, the Rails is, without Rails, we cannot be us. You know, the most of you started learning Ruby through Rails, so the Rails is very important to the Ruby community. At the same time, the lifetime of the language is longer than frameworks, so that maybe in the future there will the new web application or some frameworks to replace Rails. Or maybe Rails can be upgraded with a newer concept. For example, the Rails 3 merged the different web application framework named MERB, so that kind of the joint would success very rarely. So that I doubt the Rails 3 will be out or not. But they somehow succeeded to release the Rails 3 and the 4, 5. And we are expecting Rails 6 in the future. So that maybe Rails will be upgraded or embrace the new technology. And I cannot see the future, but at least Rails is very important. Rails was, and as Rails is pretty much important to the Ruby community, but Rails not equal to Ruby. The Ruby is broader.
So, I just have one question.
Here you are.
Yeah. So, you mentioned about if this is going to be an year of concurrency. So, are we going to see any sort of like sidekick-like tools built within Ruby?
Probably. I'm not sure. So we are still working on the basic concept, so that we cannot say anything for sure yet. But the Ruby concurrency is powerful enough to write something similar to Sidekick without accessing any database or anything like that. That's our goal, but we cannot say anything for sure yet.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Mats,
you.
thank you for being here. And how about a big round of applause for the creator of Ruby?